welcome back to the Covenant Eyes podcast. We are at NRB 2025, and we have another great guest joining us. Rob, I'm really excited about this conversation because it's something I'm personally very passionate about. I know you're passionate about, and I know our listeners are going to be passionate too.
Yeah, we're excited about this. Lynne Barletta is a anti-traffic advocate.
Anti-child trafficking, especially children.
Yes.
Such an important issue and such a big issue. So, Lynne, why don't you start out? Please tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, child trafficking is the fastest growing crime on the face of the earth. And America is the biggest buyer of sex. And so God called me 10 years ago when I went to Singapore on a trip to do murals. I'm an artist, a pastor, and I also pastor with my husband, but I also have a school of arts for children. So I went to Singapore to paint murals to help a home for trafficked girls. And I worked with a little girl who'd been trafficked by her parents since she was 8, groomed with pornography since she was in diapers, and she was 18. I went over there to change lives, and she changed me. And I came back, and I got contacted by juvenile justice. I went in and I worked in a facility with 30 trafficked children, 30 girls. Again, saw how the art was a vehicle to help them with the PTSD, the flashbacks, which times 100 of a veteran of the things they've been through, and they were forced to commit crimes by their trafficker. And I worked with a team of 8 therapists and developed a program using art, drawing on the right side of the brain, that we saw God just restore and heal these children in a beautiful way. And from there, I started my first organization, which just became local in my community, which is Stuart, Florida. And 2 years ago, the Lord called me to start a statewide organization that would go nationwide. And so Florida Faith Alliance began then, although I've been doing this 10 years. And it's simply been amazing to watch. But I talk about you all wherever I go. I've given over 100 live presentations myself to organizations. We train law enforcement, first responders, churches. And we talk about the resource that is available in Covenant Eyes to get people free of pornography. And I connect the dots of child trafficking all the way back to child pornography, which is as addicting as heroin. I just returned from the largest human trafficking conference in the world in Phoenix, Arizona. And we learned that there are 5 levels of university studies, 5 levels of pornography. This has got to stop. We have to do something. We must rise up, and the church must get involved and understand that so many in our congregations are addicted. They're contributing to it because they're not educated, they don't have awareness, they don't understand the need for freedom, and that's up to us pastors and leaders. We've got to go there.
Yeah. One of the things that often troubles me with the work that we do, is that so many people don't make the connection between the porn industry and trafficking of children and the abuse of children. So let's talk a little bit about that connection, because I think oftentimes when men and women learn about that, especially in the church, it breaks their heart and it changes how they see their own addiction to pornography, because when you think about it in the terms of, children being trafficked, you don't know if these people were coerced or forced into these acts. You're just watching and consuming this pornography. So let's talk a little bit.
Okay, so the Justice Department has arrested around 1,700 people just in the last couple of years. At the heart of every single one of those arrests, those were for trafficking, was child pornography. In my own community, a janitor working at a local high school with his friend had child porn. The judge indicted them 1,700 years because it was infants. This is so pervasive, it's everywhere. Parents are trafficking their own children. They're creating pornography to go to the World Wide Web with their own children, and it's growing. There are pedophilia websites. I have them in my PowerPoint that I got from law enforcement. 54,000 hits on just one website with child boards there, and they're encouraging each other to normalize sex. And this is all over the world. But there's another aspect of it. So in your gaming and on your social media and websites like Pinterest, there are back rooms, condos, and vaults, and they can only be accessed by code. So what's happening inside those vaults is the new norm for pornography. No adult should see it, let alone a child. So we did an awareness presentation at a church. A woman comes forward, a grandmother. She said, my daughter in Virginia is exhibiting all these signs you're talking about of a child being trafficked. Grades fell, she went into depression, she withdrew from her family, had a shame demeanor, all the signs. And I said, you've got to have the parents talk to her. Well, she had a transgender boyfriend come into her life, and the parents are trying to be cool, and so they're encouraging it. He invited her into Roblox, the game. You're familiar with it? Well, inside Roblox is a vault that is only accessible by a code. She goes inside there, she's exposed. Her innocence is robbed. And the parents went to the school, and the school did not have any clue as to what it was or how to deal with it. So then they went to the sheriff. The sheriff had no clue. He had not been trained, so he didn't know how to deal with it. So they came to us. We called the cyber tip line with the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children. And they had to pull their children out of school because so many of the other children were bullying this girl to stay in this vault, just as the 7-year-old was being invited into the vault. That same week, BBC produced a newscast in a high school in Sussex, England. Over 200 children were in this vault as young as 9.
Oh.
So this is worldwide, and this is what they're being exposed to. And the dark web, pornography, I know you know this, but the listeners need to hear this. Pornography is the only unregulated industry on the face of this earth. And it is time for the church to rise up and begin to deal with it, even if it means that they need to confront people in their congregation and get them free. And we have got to understand the spiritual part of this, the demonic influence, as well as the physical addiction and the dopamine in the brain and the frontal cortex of the brain that just kind of disappears without a conscience, like a drug user. And it demands more and more violence, and it demands younger and younger children. And it doesn't stop. It just gets worse. So, you want some good news?
Yes, please.
Okay. I always horrify people, and I'm like, I have to inspire you because you got to get involved.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Florida, one of the first things we did is we went to the city and county commissioners, and we gave over 18 proclamations from January to January in Human Trafficking Awareness Month, because that's what Esther did when she got the proclamation from the king, and he read it in the town square, and that ended the annihilation of the Jews.
Wow.
And so we went to the government and said, we want a proclamation. And they read it out loud.
Wow.
We read it out loud, and that began to open doors everywhere.
Wow.
And so it's so exciting
That is
to
good.
see that, because they agreed to train all of their employees in all these municipalities, that's thousands,
That is.
to recognize the signs and turn in tips. Now, that spreads very, very quickly.
Yes.
And we see tremendous arrests and rescues. I work with Homeland Security. I travel with Homeland Security, present with them.
Yeah.
They like my presentation because it's very visual, since I'm an artist, so it really gets the point across.
Right.
And I work with law enforcement. We went into one church and did one awareness presentation. A woman comes forward and she says, now that you've explained it, I think the house across the street from me is being used for trafficking.
Oh, wow.
So I texted my liaison at the sheriff's department. He said, I'm on it. And he goes over there and he busts that house.
Wow.
That house in Stewart was connected to 3 more in Lake Worth. Hundreds of users,
Oh, my
women and
goodness.
children were rescued. And since then, just 2 weeks ago, more were arrested in that same town for running a brothel.
All from one presentation.
How about that?
Yeah.
So see what the church can do.
Yeah. So let's talk about the church a little bit more. I work with the church week in and week out about pornography. Barna says only 10% of churches in the U.S. have any kind of ministry, even just talking about pornography, let alone the links to child sex trafficking. What does the church need to do? What message do you have to the pastors to tell them to get on board
It is
in
a
this?
pastor's responsibility to equip their parents and their grandparents because their own children are at risk. This is all turning into child trafficking. The normalization of sex is for child trafficking. We're talking about a $150 billion business. We're talking about the largest economic industry. And it's all about the money. So we must understand that if the pastors of the churches do not get involved, we could lose our own children. We're not going to let that happen. So that's what I would say to them. Equip your parents, equip your grandparents. They don't know. They don't have a clue. And once they're equipped, they rise up and they get involved.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. I think that's important too. I think a lot of churches, are starting to talk about the issue of pornography, but they're forgetting the other piece, the other shoe has to drop, which is let's talk about child exploitation. And I think having you come in or organizations like yours to talk about these issues is so impactful. So how do we get more churches to get in touch with you or similar organizations?
FloridaFaithAlliance.org. Soon to start Colorado Faith Alliance and
Awesome.
California Faith Alliance. And I think we've made a few connections here to start Texas Faith Alliance.
All right.
She's right over there. And I think what we have to do is we have to multiply what we're doing. I train presenters. I send them out.
Yes.
I train teachers. We send them out. And that's to work with trafficked and abused children because the restoration is a huge part of this.
Right.
And that's part of the church's mandate is to restore and deliver and to cast out demons. We've got to get to that part too.
Yeah.
And so we have to learn our authority and start walking in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a
Lynne,
great
where
call.
would people find information and how do they get in contact with you to actually
Go to
get that?
FloridaFaithAlliance.org. You can contact us directly from there. We have an 888 number that you can actually text or call. It's right here in the brochure. It's 888-670-4638. Sorry. I got so many numbers in here, I get them mixed up sometimes. But we also suggest, now Florida has a state number that you can call, but we tell people you could just call 911. I've talked to so many police officers and deputies that have said, I'd rather have 1,000 tips that came to nothing to get to one that came to something.
That's good
And so
advice.
turn in tips. If you see something, you've got to say something.
Yes.
You might save a life.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we've seen it. We've seen it happen. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your passion and your service because this is needed, and I think we need to have more of these conversations. So I hope all of our listeners will check out the website. There are organizations in every state. So you are in several states. Your organization is a great resource, but if you're not in a state that you live in, you can reach out to other organizations. There's the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. You can get connected with them. They can help you find places. We have got to get activated in this space. As Christians, it's our obligation and our duty to protect these children and to be a beacon of hope for people out there that as they're going through recovery. So thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your service. Please keep us posted on how we can help you and support you.
Thank you. And let me just end with, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's
Yeah.
what it comes down to.